Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to a very special Tuesday Shastra event. We're not looking at a specific book, we're looking at all the books. We're having a little review, year in review, all the book studies in review. We've many of us have read together Bhagavad Gita now, Nectar of Instruction, the Light of the Bhagavat, Ishopanishad, and we just finished Nectar of Devotion. And because it's the end of the year and it's the end of a book, it's a nice time to look back and which is good for looking forward, just kind of see where we've come from, what the best parts were, what stuck out to us, because there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of really special quotes and verses, and we're going to just reflect and share. And I'll lead, and we'll also have a lot of time for sharing. And as always, we'll start with some kirtan. Best way to start.
Okay. Yay, so excited to gather with you all on the final day of this calendar year. What a year it's been. So we start with our opening prayers, this invocation, this honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas, even the wisdom they pass down through Shastra to us, through the holy name, and for bestowing the light of knowledge upon us and removing the darkness of ignorance. And we open our hearts with gratitude, with humility, and we become open to receiving knowledge, wisdom, grace through our devotional service. Take a deep breath and fill up. Vaishnavebhyo strong and gathering key. Hari Hari Bol.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashlakna Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasandhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Go to Premanande, Haribo. Like Kirtan was so powerful, it attracted like a dozen people. This devotee is manifesting. So you can see, turn the camera here.
Yeah.
There's a variety of devotees just joined us. So we're going to review some Shastra. We're going to talk Shastra. We've been through Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, Nectar of Devotion, Letter to Bhagavat. I was thinking I would just talk a little bit, and then we'll have a lot of just, see how excited I am, just a lot of flow. People can share what their favorite parts were, what sticks out for them. So a little bit from my end, the Bhagavad Gita was the longest book we looked at, 18 chapters, 700 verses. And every chapter is a different kind of yoga, karma yoga, the yoga of action, gyan yoga, yoga of knowledge, all different ways of connecting, all different yogas. The yoga of the difference between the enjoyer of the field and the field itself, like the consciousness and the body that it's dwelling in. The yoga of the three modes of nature, so forth. And Krishna patiently hearing Arjuna's questions and answering them in different ways to help him understand how to get beyond his temporary material situation. He's got a spiritual being having a material situation, as always, and how to actually connect to his real self. And that's kind of like the quintessential bhakti book in a way. It's maybe the most celebrated book ever to come out of India, the most recognized book. So many great minds have appreciated it. Now all of you have too. We had the Ishopanishad, one of the Upanishads, and the Upanishads, as we saw, Ishopanishad is pretty short. It's very abstract. It's using like a model of kind of prescriptive as opposed to descriptive. It's not about, somebody's journey. It's just defining, what is matter, what is spirit. And it's from a different kind of model. We don't usually go to the Upanishads because they are so abstract. Upanishads have been translated and commented on by devotees. Upanishads also have been translated and commented on by persons who are just more interested in esoteric knowledge, be they impersonalists or just kind of academics. The Ishopanishad is the one of the Upanishads that Srila Prabhupada gave a full commentary on, although he quotes from different Upanishads in his purports, like Shvetashvatar Upanishad, Gopal Tapani, different Upanishads to make points. And it's talking about ultimately surrendering, how to surrender to the Supreme Person. In fact, at the end, there is a beautiful prayer that we all experienced. That was one of the highlights for me. It was going over that section again where the speaker says, please remember everything that I've done in service and in sacrifice, and let this temporary body be burned to ashes. Let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. And please, Lord, remember everything I've done and help me connect to you at this time, i.e. the time of death. And then we went into the Nectar of Instruction. I think it might have been Nectar of Instruction first, actually. Nectar of Instruction is actually a very interesting book. It's along with Nectar of Devotion. They were both produced by Srila Rupa Goswami, based on his realizations from practice of bhakti and based on his discussions with Lord Chaitanya. And Nectar of Instruction, although short, it's like 11 verses. It's very, very potent application. It's a little how-to book for bhakti. So for somebody who is convinced that they want to practice bhakti, or they already are practicing bhakti, the Nectar of Instruction is really like a really condensed form of how to do that. So we heard about controlling the senses, controlling the mind, how valuable it is, how to do it, what to avoid, 6 things to avoid, 6 things to actually try to cultivate. And each one of these verses, we could practically like talk again for hours and hours. The 6 loving exchanges, giving and receiving gifts, opening your heart and receiving the contents of someone else's heart in confidence, and to give and receive prashad, which we're going to do later. And Prabhupada says that these loving exchanges, these are actually the meaning, the purpose for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness even being manifested, is to just facilitate these things. And then the power of chanting, and different levels of devotees based on their relationship with the holy name, their faith. How to see devotees beyond the body, beyond the changing mind, and as spiritual beings, and the power of chanting constantly. And then towards the end, a description of taking shelter of Radha Kunda and Sri Vrindavan Dham, ultimately, as our supreme gift from Lord Chaitanya. So that was the nectar of instruction. Short, but very potent, very practical. Lots of questions came up, lots of discussion, how to actually apply. How do I avoid materialistic association? How do I develop enthusiasm and patience? And so forth. Then we had Light of the Bhagavat, which was kind of divine inspiration. It's not classically, studied so much. It's a little bit of a hidden gem from the books that Srila Prabhupada translated. He actually wrote it himself based on a section of the 10th canto, and it was edited and published posthumously because he wanted to have it presented at a conference in Japan that he never got the funds to go to and attend personally. But we all really appreciated it because it was using analogies from nature, beautiful artwork, very very relevant and naturalistic kind of expressions. Okay, the sky, the sun, the seasons, and then Prabhupada was helping us derive meaning for social structure and a person's life and the organization of a community and a society. And there was a lot of really nectarian things spoken there. I remember one of the things that Srila Prabhupada said that always stuck with me is that failure doesn't have to be detrimental. It can be the pillar to success. That another thing he said also too is that our life is like a little chaturmasya. Chaturmasya is a little period, 4 months, where you kind of just go inward, because typically in India, it's the rainy season, you can't really travel. So merchants aren't doing business, students aren't going to school, kings aren't collecting taxes, students aren't, you're just not, you're in one place and you kind of just go inward. And afterwards you realize you've made such advancement. And he said this life is like a little chaturmasya, where you try to dedicate yourself, and whatever spiritual advancement you make, you practically in a way don't even realize it till you're leaving your body. This is this giant level up. It's like as you're leaving the body to the next situation, there's this way in which all the accumulated spiritual experiences you have really start to bear their fruit. So that was a nice little book we went over in just a few days. And we just finished Nectar of Devotion, another amazing work by Srila Rupa Goswami. The Science of Bhakti. What is Bhakti? How do you practice Bhakti at the level of rules and regulations, at the level of spontaneous attraction? What does Bhakti bring into one's life? What are the angas or limbs of Bhakti? 64 main angas. And then we break it down to 5 primary, like the most important angas. And that never gets old. What are the 5 most important angas of Bhakti? Anyone can give one. Nam, the name. The Dham, the holy place of Krishna's pastimes.
Hearing?
Hearing, yes. So hearing like Shastra, hearing Bhagavatam, hearing Bhakti Shastra, which we're doing right now. The deities, serving the deities. And one more?
Serving devotees.
Yeah, Sangha. Yeah, so if you can't memorize 64 items, that's okay. We have little Kali Yuga brains. We're not all going to be able to memorize all these things. That's why we keep studying, but also as a short form, and as Lord Chaitanya's mercy, he directly said in his conversation with Srila Rupa Goswami, these are the 5 most important. And Rupa Goswami expands on them in several places, as does Srila Prabhupada in his commentary in Nectar of Devotion. So that's kind of an overview. And practically, we could pick any chapter and we can find so many sweet things that were expressed by Srila Prabhupada, and the source authors, be they Rupa Goswami, Krishna and Arjuna, Sanjaya commenting on Bhagavad Gita in passing, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he's thrilled. He says, now having heard this conversation, I feel overwhelmed. My hairs are standing on end. I'm feeling great ecstasy because he's a devotee. And this is the symptom of hearing Bhagavad Gita with pure consciousness. Actually, we heard Bhagavad Gita twice because we read the whole way through on the Mokshada Ekadashi, Bhagavad Gita's appearance day, which was really special. We had a little mini Sanjay experience of our own. So maybe to start us off, I've already shared a couple. I'll share one more reflection, something that really stood out for me. I loved how in the process of reading these books, which I've read and studied these books several times each, even Light of the Bhagavad, it's my third or fourth time reading it. Because I was with all of you, and it was a unique experience because everyone is wherever they're at in bhakti and they're having their own unique perspective. I really appreciated the Sangha aspect a lot. I like getting together and hearing how the same text reflected back from different jivas, different bhakti practicing devotees, was coming alive more and more for me, and for all of you. And I could see it on WhatsApp. I could see it in person. I could see it, practically listening back on the recording. So I really like that. That was my overall highlight. Now your turn. What did you hear? What do you remember from any of these texts and our time with them? It's been like a year and a half, right? August, I think 2023.
I just really appreciate how thorough you were with teaching,
Mm.
Because I find even like whatever, I just think a lot about what you've taught and can reflect back and apply it. And that's just been really helpful in application. Like there's one thing to just hear it, but there's another piece to actually put it into practice. And so the way you've taught, like I don't need to go back and review all my notes, or I don't need to go back and reread everything that you shared with us to help us really learn it. It's there and it's sunk in. And I'm really grateful for that knowledge that I carry inside of me now that I access on a regular basis, or having a conversation. And I'm like, oh, remember when we talked about this at this class or whatever it is. So I really appreciate that.
That's really encouraging because I'm always kind of trying to find the balance between how to have how to really do justice to something. Like you take any chapter in Bhagavad Gita or any verse practically from the Ishopanishad or Nectar of Instruction, and like look at Nectar of Instruction, there's 11 verses, but if you take Srila Prabhupada's commentary, and then he's quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in his commentaries, and then there's a Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given commentary on several of those verses, and they're all so practical that really, if you think about it, and I was always thinking about it, there's always so many things that Prabhupada and contemporary acharyas have said, and it's like I want to do justice to those things and help people have a reservoir of information, but I also don't want to overwhelm people or get lost in a slog. So I'm glad you felt like there was a lot of value and detail you could draw on, because that's kind of the point. Otherwise, yeah, we want to have things we can connect to afterwards, like what stood out. And I can guarantee when you read it the next time, it'll be something different. Always.
And we'll keep reading them.
Keep reading them. Yeah.
That's kind of where I was gonna go with it. Like reading the Bhagavad Gita, now a few times. There's something new that I pick up on every time. And like the different pieces of Shastra that I've read on my own, I might read it, but I don't fully understand. So going through with you in these different texts, it's been like, it's a way for me to connect, and how you connect it to real life now has been key for everything.
Yeah, they're very practical texts. That was the main meditation I had when I started these classes. Actually, it was the main meditation I had, I've been having for the last few years in teaching. So I've been giving classes regularly since like 2012. And the last half of being like a student monk and into, starting this group, I was always thinking that I really see that there's so much in these books that's totally relevant right now. And it makes me sad and more than a little annoyed, and also hopeful because there's an opportunity that I see that people aren't even aware. It's like they have, I'm sitting on this medicine and people are sitting here coughing and hacking and suffering from the disease that the medicine is actually curing. And I see it's working on me. And I see people who are taking the medicine and it's like they're already far more purified than I am. And it's like, how can I help people to see that these books aren't just super cool and interesting and from an ancient time? And that's all true, very interesting and very, as much brain candy as you want. But they're also directly relevant for their relationships right now, and their how they spend their money and how they live in a body and how they view life and death and how they raise their kids, because they totally are. And you're seeing that. And so I've just been really grateful that my teachers have made these books really practical, because that's what bhaktas do. That's what devotees do. They live the philosophy. So a couple months ago, I went to Vrindavan for a month, and I spent most of that time hearing and chanting with and kind of at the lotus feet of devotees who are more advanced and more experienced than me. And so that's where it's coming from. So if you're feeling enthused and you're feeling this practical application, I'm glad, because it means I was able to transmit some of that. Yeah.
You were just speaking about sitting on medicine, and it had me thinking of the verse in the Nectar of Instruction about jaundice.
Right. There you
right?
go.
And how like
Medicine.
the medicine, it tastes sour,
Bitter.
tastes bitter, all the flavors. But it's actually the sweetness that we need,
Yeah.
right? And that I always think, I'm like, look, all my notes here, I'm like, oh, which part am I gonna talk about? There's so much that we've learned and studied together. And I see. And I was thinking about Nectar of Instruction actually though, but how the regulative principles and even the angas of bhakti and these different lists and guidance and prescriptions that we've been given, they are regulations for freedom. And that when we're newer in our bhakti can feel confining or restricting or scary, or how am I gonna do this, or right. And I've like felt in my own practice how that's evolved and shifted and changed and witnessed that, and you, all of you too. And that everything we've studied, everything we talked about, all the amazing reflections that you guys are brilliant, and you're studying so diligently. It's so impressive and it's so inspiring. And I was thinking about how it's all leading to a deeper desire to connect with Krishna daily. And then it gives understanding the philosophy more continuously, right? I had read each of these texts, but reading them again, right? It's like each time you read them, as Robin spoke to, it's like more is revealed. Not I fought hard to understand more, but Krishna gave me the knowledge, right? To the ability to understand. And that's been a theme. I think of Aaron, we've talked about this many times of like, we can't like figure it out, right? It's like through sincere submission and with humility that we are given the knowledge to understand. And then we're given the desire with more understanding to go deeper into our bhakti, because we understand more of what we're devoting ourselves to. Right? So I should say that's what my experience is, right? And I know Shastra says that, but getting to live that is so powerful.
Yeah, one thing that you said that really stood out to me that I think happened in every book was there's always these, because we are talking about application, there was always these kind of really rich moments where somebody would become vulnerable and be like, wait, how do I apply this in my life? And how do I know when I'm trying to I'm trying to do too much, and I'm guilt tripping myself, and I'm trying to climb that ladder too many rungs at a time, or how do I know if I'm going too slowly? And what does this principle look like in my situation? Because Rupa Goswami says in the Energy of Instruction that the holy name and the pastimes and the katha, all this discussion about Krishna, is actually transcendently sweet. But just like if you have jaundice, the thing that makes you better is actually having sugar candy. But when you have jaundice, your entire body is coated with bile, And so anything you eat, including sugar candy, tastes bitter.
Mm.
So he says, just like that, when you're starting to chant Hare Krishna and you're starting to take up a practice of regulated hearing, the mind can be like, I don't want to do this. This is like, I'd rather be doing something else. And then you do and you feel better. And the sweetness starts to manifest. So there's always this funny balance of like, I know this is really good for me and I should do as much of it as I can. And how do I do that in a way where I'm not like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back? I could be steady. And I'm also not making my mind freak out. How do I kind of like tame that horse and ride it properly so it's not a fight all the time? That came up a lot.
Yeah.
Because it always does. Because this isn't just brain candy. We're all thinking, as we're hearing active instruction, hearing about like, okay, loving exchanges, we're all thinking like, okay, how do I practice more loving exchanges? How do I take more sangha, devotees, and open my heart? And how do I give and receive prasadam? And then it's like, that's a living question everybody has a different answer for in their life. So
Yeah, we had like little nuggets that would come out, like Mel was speaking about little things that we could easily remember, like working to give, not to get, or
Right.
Bhakti the yoga, or Bhakti is the religion of the soul, or like
Save, but will
little
save ya.
save and will save, yeah.
yeah, we can do a review of little
We should just have a
sutras,
sutra review.
things that's like literal lines that we use that stood out. Those are good.
I saw that in my notes today too. Krishna is shining. Or little connectors,
Mhm.
something like that.
I actually had somebody, I wasn't eavesdropping, but overhearing someone talking, and when I was checking out of the line and they said dovetail, and I like got teary eyed
Wow.
thinking about just, I don't know, that it was
Srila Prabhupada uses it a lot.
in that book, and that just brought me back to kind of, and that's it. Like, that's that feeling of being drawn back in, and that bit by bit, you keep reminding us bit by bit, you dovetailing everything together.
Yeah.
That's
Dovetailing means like to apply a material thing in spiritual context. We actually studied in Nectar Devotion, we studied Yukta Vairagya, in the technical term, like what it means to actually, Yukta means connected, Vairagya means with detachment, what it means to dovetail. And we had a large discussion about that, but Prabhupada uses that word dovetail as a short form for that whole idea of Yukta Vairagya throughout, because that's what bhakti is. We're spiritual beings in the material world with material bodies, and we have this dual identity. And so we're trying to dovetail as much as possible of our material world and our body and our family and our money and our mind and our words and everything. And so that's also a word that you don't hear much of. It's because it's kind of esoteric, not used that much. So when you hear it, you thought of Prabhupada. Great.
One thing that stuck with me is, this, I guess it was in Nectar of Instruction, the quote, advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower.
Yeah.
And, that was the second book that we were diving into. It was the second time I'd read that book. And, looking back at all of the books that we've studied, there were plenty of times when the texts were so esoteric and we didn't understand. And, there might have been a private text back and forth saying, what are we talking about? Like, but, each time, like, I thought about that, like, just like when you're a child, stuff goes over your head, but you're still listening and you're still learning all the rest of it. And Shamya Pras, you've done such a beautiful job, reining us in when we go off track about like, what does it mean? And, at times, I think it's adorable when you geek out on the subject, but I like that. And, I follow you down that path. And it's just been such a wonderful experience to really go through each one of these texts, but also have the discipline to just keep going and suspend what I don't understand for a moment to get to the next bit. Because so many of the texts in their own way have repeated the same message through different perspectives, through different analogies. And, speaking of analogies, the light of the Bhagavat, that one was just so beautiful that it really touched that like tree hugger part of me that just like did all the nature analogies and brought it all together. It's just been such a lovely journey. And I think that, just being in the sound vibration, being in this Sangha with all of you, we're all at different levels trying to learn, and, we're infants really in the process, but it's just been so beautiful. And when I was at Kirtan just the other day, I brought up the quote that we talked about last time we were together, that, in the material world, the safest place that you can be is in the center of a kirtan. And it was a lovely remembrance that I had, that I was able to share with the group. And, now that we've been doing this for a while now, I can talk about it with other people that aren't, that don't know bhakti yet. Like, I can talk about it, and I can start really explaining. And just like Maria Montessori said in her philosophy, you watch, then you participate, then you teach. Once you really can start
Yeah.
teaching, then you know it, which is amazing. And I just want to
Yeah.
thank you for that.
That's straight out of the Upanishads. There's Shravana, you hear. There's Manana, you consider. And then there's also I think the next one is Nididhyasana, you actually like contemplate, then you share. And I love that. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, I really appreciated what you were saying too about the relationship between like hearing as an act, whether or not I understand it, and also the active, application of your intelligence to try to understand it. Because we're doing both. It's like, it's not a sentimental process. We are engaging our intelligence, because the intelligence also has to be purified. So making sense of the philosophy is a totally valid thing to do. And in fact, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a verse where Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta bodhya chitta na karo alash. You should not be lazy in discussing the conclusions of the Siddhanta, the full conclusion of the philosophy. Iha hoite krishne lagi sudrita manash. Because by doing so, your mind and intelligence become fixed in service. So we're trying to apply our intelligence and strengthen it. And at the same time, like you were saying, we're only getting so much of it, right? And it's not like, because I don't totally understand, or there's something here I'm not completely getting, we can't just press pause on our hearing. There's the attitude of the advancing devotee is like, okay, I don't get everything, but that's always going to be the case. And I ask questions and I inquire, and whatever I can receive right now, I receive. And I'm not going to stop going back to the material, because there's something more to chew on, right? Let it percolate. And so there's both things. There's the intellectual process of like trying to assimilate everything, and there's the process of just with your heart receiving the sound vibration and trusting that it's going to do what it's going to do, and that Krishna will help me understand. And both things are true, because if it's just one, then it's like this really kind of brainy academic process where the whole thing is defined by how much you can intellectualize everything and maybe talk about it in a brainy way. And then the other hand, if it's just the heart thing, then you never actually try to apply your intelligence, and you don't have anything to reflect afterwards, and you never really apply it in your life, and it's all just passive, right? But it's actually both, and they're feeding into each other. So I appreciated that aspect of what you were saying too.
And Shamya, we spoke about Prajalpa.
Prajalpa, yeah,
Prajalpa.
nectar of instruction.
Right, and
So
like
useless
village
talking.
useless talk or gossip, and you were talking, and Tanya just shared, and you were reflecting too, of like talking to other people about your realizations and what you're reading and this type of thing, and that doing that more and more helps us in our advancement, and also a way that we can connect with other devotees. And I was thinking, Siddhanta, that several times that you've come in the Bhakti house, I'll hear you talk to Shamya and say, Prabhu, what are you reading recently? Right, so like engage in conversation in a way, like, what are you reading, what are you contemplating in Shastra, what are you studying, versus like, how about the weather? It's like such a different
Yeah,
energy.
that's a
and
sign
vibe.
of a mature devotee, somebody who knows that's where the nectar is. So
And I remembered you saying that in a class, like that when you're around a more advanced devotee, like ask them, what are you reading? Or,
well, it's not just when you're around a more advanced devotee,
Or-
when you're not any devotee.
right.
And
And more advanced devotees will ask that.
yeah,
I remembered you saying that, and then I witnessed it not to do it, and I was like,
yeah,
this is real life.
it happened all the time in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is basically devotees asking questions of each other and of Krishna, and the conversations that come from that are there for us to relish. So yeah, if I can pick like one thing that I want devotees to take away as a practical application is that you all remember that you have full permission from Krishna. You have full divine permission to share with each other and everyone all the time about what you're reading and thinking about in bhakti. And it's actually the most simple but most valuable thing you can do in a way, because it's just keeping the kirtan going, right? So our whole WhatsApp thing was just an attempt to engage technology in that. And every time we go to each other's houses or get on the phone, it's just another opportunity to lace some of, because we have to talk about the material stuff because we're in the world, but to lace that conversation with some, what are you reading? What are you thinking about? What's happening for you in bhakti? Check out this awesome thing I just heard, or Prabhupada said, or Krishna, and that's devotees literally never stop doing that.
Srinivas sent me something yesterday via text. This just really spoke to me and wanted to send it to you.
Yeah.
Just like we can do that. We can do that. Thanks, Srinivas.
Yeah. More reflections? Any sections, any verses or sutra-like moments from Prabhupada or the conversations that came around the books?
The first verse of Shri Ishpanshad completely
The
changed.
invocation?
Yeah.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam? Yeah.
Yeah, that I think about it all the time. And I
Yeah.
have a lot of wavering moments in my healing life, and it's just a really beautiful reminder, and I never forget it.
Yeah, the Supreme Whole is completely perfect, and everything that emanates from him is also completely equipped. And Prabhupada says something in the purport there that he says in another book, I forget where, but it's also like one of those sutras for me, that all manner of incompleteness is experienced by incomplete experience of the complete whole.
Exactly.
It's like if I'm feeling incomplete, it's because I'm not connecting to the complete whole fully, because there is no incomplete. There's just a partial experience of Krishna, or a material reflective experience of Krishna that's leaving me feeling complete. So yeah. It sounds like a brain teaser, but it's actually really really practical.
Yeah.
Really practical. Great, more. I want more.
One of my
Really, please go.
one of my recent takeaways happened after our Bhagavad Gita, or our second Bhagavad Gita reading. I just recently moved to Vermont, but I've been virtually attending our classes and gatherings, as I could over the past year and a half or so. And um, to listen to everyone reading from the Gita the second time around, I was like, wow, I have like sincere love for these devotees in a way that I didn't have it like the first go around.
Give me the
Or
recitation just to get
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And even, in the beginning of our classes, I I can recognize now I have so much more patience now. I'm more eager to hear from the hearts of devotees now, or even just like, wow, I like learning and beginning to love devotees because of just the time that I'm able to spend and hearing and sharing and learning about Krishna together. And so that's been like the biggest takeaway just from like being in the Sangha and the containers and gathering around for the Shastra class. Um, and it's like the sweetest kind of like reminder, or just so encouraging in the sense like if I'm trying to fall in love with Krishna, then I certainly have to fall in love with devotees first, and like that's happening. So it's just making me really feel like this is all cultivating all of the things, and it's presenting itself to be sweeter, and in ways like I didn't even realize it was happening until sort of like moments like these, or going around things for like another spiral, to be able to really witness um, like the cultivation of the bhakti, and just the progression of um, just the progression on the path.
Thank you. Yeah, there's there's always value in studying Shastra on our own, and there's a kind of a parallel track of hearing it and studying and reflecting it with other devotees that offers something that you can't really just get on your own. And we see that because the most advanced devotees are always seeking out sangha to hear and chant with. And and yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I feel that too. That over the years, the sanghas that I've done service with are the ones where I have heartfelt connections with devotees. And there's something about hearing and chanting about Krishna and the philosophy, especially if it's done in the mood that we're doing it, where people automatically become vulnerable and they share what's happening for them, and they develop strength and take inspiration from each other. And when you're doing that in a way that keeps Krishna in the middle, you can't help but appreciate the devotees more, because you see them as something far beyond the body and mind, because they're actually showing. That's why it's a loving exchange. They're showing their heart. They're showing that aspect of how they're relating to Krishna, and that's attractive and it's inspiring. And without that, it's just like a collection of. It's really easy to see people, even devotees, as just a collection of material energy, which Nectar of Instruction warns us we shouldn't do, because then you'll overlook them. Or taken for granted or whatever. But I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. And it's proof that it's a transcendental process that you can do this even if you don't live in Vermont and you're not in this particular room. It's through sound. It's mainly through sound that hearing and sharing sincerely can happen.
And it's through the last year and a half study, like you, in one of the, I can't remember which text, but we spoke about how even when you're thinking about moving somewhere, consider moving somewhere closer to devotees.
Right.
I
Ask
think-
yourself, like, what is the best decision for my service?
Right.
For
And
my
I really
sangha?
did that.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
More, Allison, please.
Yes, I just wanted to echo everything everyone said about your teaching and how you just brought these books to life and these esoteric concepts that I didn't even think were possible to be applicable in my life. You helped make them become more realized, and they really are a part of my everyday life. And I'm thinking of things like learning about the modes of nature and
Mhm.
just taking those three concepts and thinking, how are you operating? How are you behaving today, Allison? Where is this going to take you? What is going to be the end? Is this serving Krishna, or is this helping other people? So just those simple concepts. And then just after the whole year and a half, which is amazing that one of the last concepts you spoke about was anarta vritti. And just, I wasn't even seeking it, but it's just naturally happened for me. I
Yeah.
mean, things that I had a taste for, I was telling Erin today, like gossip, sarcasm, things that just were part of my everyday world. It just hurts my ears and my heart. And I just don't want to be a part of that anymore. So just the amazing changes I have seen. And even if I can't realize everything, you did say one thing, because Tanya said the kirtan, the safest place to be, but you did say, if you can't do it perfectly, do it anyway and do it better next time.
Great. I remember saying that. It's true. So
Well,
true.
maybe you can't chant perfect rounds, but chant whatever you can anyway. And
Yeah.
maybe tomorrow you'll say
It
you
might have
wake
been
up and
in response to somebody had that question. I brought up a verse from the 11th canto.
Eileen?
Eileen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
My reflection from that is that it's really helpful to hear how, like when you mentioned the modes of nature, hearing about the modes of nature for me was like one of these moments where it's like, oh my God, actually I can see it everywhere now. Because it's so applicable. It's so helpful for me, and I think for all of you, when you get like a framework for reality, and you can kind of apply that framework in your life, because even if you don't memorize the Sanskrit around it, if you have like a basic concept of how things are working, like the modes of nature is like a bigger level picture of how things work, and you can understand food, interactions, times of day, times of year, music, whatever, they all have different manifestations in different modes. Then when you're living your life, because you have that intellectual framework, you automatically can bring that to bear, and it can help you make better choices. Because that's what it comes down to. This isn't just brain candy. We're like, okay, well, does listening to death metal put me in the mode of goodness? No, not so much. It's actually like making me feel aggressive and depressed. So it's actually kind of more tamasic and rajasic, and you can test that out with so many things. So I that's what I was hearing, is that like these little frameworks that Krishna is giving us. So that's just like one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, or this framework or that framework, or like they're little things you can take with you, that actually each one of these little topics can be expanded into a whole seminar. You can give a whole seminar on the modes of nature if you wanted to, but just like a rudimentary understanding of it is enough to carry around with you, so you have like this kind of like armor.
I just want to also add one, just
Mhm.
Bhagavad Gita 213 and 220, just trying to deal with not being this body, or anxiety, a fear I have of losing loved ones and people in my life has just been life changing. And I love that I can go and open it now and not be scared and actually internalize it. Is amazing.
That's so great to hear. Yeah, Krishna is our friend. The whole reason he spoke Bhagavad Gita is so we can take shelter of it. That's why he's so happy when he says at the end, I'm so pleased with anybody who tries to share this knowledge. So, because it's so helpful for everybody. And it's nice to beyond nice. It's really great to get out of our own way and feel like I can always take shelter of Bhagavad Gita. 213 and 220, for those who don't have a Bhagavad Gita handy, are two verses early on in the text where Krishna says that like the body's always changing, like you pick up clothes and you wear them and they get worn out, and so you change them. Similarly, the soul passes through the body. And 220 says that the soul never comes, what is it? Never comes into being. Never, no birth or death at any time, has not come into being, is not now coming into being, will never come into being. They're unborn, eternal, ever existing, primeval, not slain when the body is slain. Just like this strict difference between the body and the soul. It's maybe the fundamental piece of philosophy in all of our books, because that's kind of where it comes from, is the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Everything else is based on that. Nothing about karma yoga or gyan yoga or anything else even starts to make sense until you have that basic building block. Okay, first things first, check it out. You're not your body. Here's how it works. Spirit, matter, connected but different. And it never gets old, actually. I've been hearing that for so many years, and I've seen advanced devotee after advanced devotee. Srila Prabhupada himself never gets tired about talking about hearing about how you're not the body, because it's so easy to forget that. And as soon as you do, the whole thing just becomes like Maya again. Everything becomes confusing. You don't have any answers. You don't remember Krishna. You're overwhelmed, lamentation, confusion. And as soon as you remember, oh yeah, material, spiritual, the difference is like the veil is lifted. So you're going to be referring to that over and over again. So those are really good verses. It's a really good section of our philosophy to hang on to. It's evergreen, as they say. Evergreen.
On that topic of evergreen, I think something that has stuck with me through every book we've read is how these things were written hundreds, if not thousands of years ago,
Mhm.
and that they have stood the test of time. And they're as relevant today as they were when they were first spoken or written down. And also, as I've learned more and more and heard you teach us and turn many of these ancient teachings into practical modern day application, how universal they are. And bhakti is just the lens and the practice through which we're learning about them, but they really span all religions and spiritual practices. And Kishori, you always say something at the start of either kirtan or yoga. Alice and I were talking about this today, that, it's all are welcome, right? And many of us come from other spiritual lineages. And I had the opportunity to go to Catholic Mass on Christmas Eve with my husband. And it's really amazing to sit there and feel God. You know, it doesn't really matter what steeple is above you, and also how much of, you know, the words of the priest were bhakti.
Yeah.
Like that really blows me away almost every day, how much of what we have been reading and learning is universal.
Yeah, non-sectarian spiritual science. That's the essence of what Lord Chaitanya came to give. The Bhagavad Gita isn't just for Indian-bodied persons or Sanskrit speakers, if there are any native Sanskrit speakers on the planet. I don't think there are. It's for everybody. Like the modes of nature are operating whether you understand them or believe in them or have a word for them or to call them something else. You know, they're just there. And so bhakti principles are the principles by which we're able to connect to our source. And that's totally something that can be experienced in a Christian context or a Muslim context or a atheistic context. It's like, you know, it's just a matter of we're taking shelter or taking help from the vocabulary and the guidance and the different maps and structures that our teachers have given us, and we're applying them, and we're seeing that it works and it makes sense, and it makes sense in different contexts, and it's actually for everyone. It's just a question of how much we're ready to receive or digest, and the attitude of the practitioner. And there's also, yeah, there's cultural elements and time, place, and circumstance. There'll be more Latin in a Catholic church, and you know, more other languages in a different context, and that's just time and place, and that's good too. We honor our tradition. Like I've never felt ashamed of loving the details of the Krishna Bhakti tradition. They're beautiful songs and teachings, and that spiritual variety is something we don't want to erase by artificially homogenizing everything. But I think it's really necessary to always come back to the essentials that are underlying the apparent differences. So it doesn't become like a fashion show of dressing like this or a linguistic contest or anything else. It's actually about how every one of us is connected to higher power and can experience it at every second, and can experience the world through the wisdom of these texts and so forth. Yeah.
We too went to a service, a mass on Christmas Eve with my family, and I have somewhat of a relationship with the minister, and we spoke to him after, and he said, like, we were up in the balcony, and he said that we spoke to Shami and I after, and he said that he felt our resonance, because we were like singing along and singing all the prayers, and then he took your hands, and what did he say to you?
He said something like, keep doing the good thing. It's the same essentially everywhere, and don't let anybody convince you otherwise.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. And he said that, and I was like, yeah, amen.
We were like, yeah, amen.
I'm with you. Don't worry.
Hallelujah. It's a really beautiful moment.
Yeah. I could appreciate the essential bhakti. I mean, you know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a great example of somebody who was so rooted in Chaitanya Bhakti that he could actually, and did, talk about Christianity and other traditions, and enter into sanghas where the people who had no experience with Hindu or Indian, you know, Dharma, and talk to them on their terms. So some of our acharyas have done that, and that you can do when you get very deep in the non-sectarian science. So it's really nice. I appreciate what you're saying. It's really nice to study something and recognize it as making you appreciate apparently different traditions more. It's like, oh, yeah, there's differences, but actually the essential thing is the same, and now I can appreciate it. It's a nice, it kind of breaks down the tendency to sectarianism, which is always there in the material world. It's like,
I can't remember where it's referred to in the Gita, but I mean, Krishna says that whatever your faith is, he makes your faith become steady.
Chapter 7, verse 22 and 23.
Whatever that is, you get a response from Krishna. It might be filtered because you're not necessarily praying directly to Krishna, but I
Right.
see that in every faith.
Right. He specifically says he could worship demigods, which are like not even God, just empowered
Right.
members of the material world. And you can even do that empowered by him if you really want to. You can see Lord Shiva or Lord Ganesh or any other demigod as the supreme, and he'll empower you to do that. And there's a way in which, but you don't recognize
Right.
the context.
But that's how his potency works through
Right.
all these other spiritual paths.
Yeah. And then on a higher level, like actually beyond demigod worship, bhakti as it's manifested in different traditions is actually about worshiping the supreme person, whether they have specific knowledge of him or not. It's like one of my favorite sayings is to worship the creator, not the creation. I got that from a Muslim friend. That's like a succinct description of a piece of wisdom from the Quran, because that's bhakti. Bhakti is like, okay, whether you can name all the different archangels in the Judeo-Christian canon, or the different demigods, and there are millions of them, you do recognize that there is a creator and there's creation, and there's a difference. And within the creation, there's more or less empowered persons. Just like some people are stronger or wiser, there's also non-humans who are stronger and wiser, but they're also part of the creation, and they're not God. And so that's a universal principle. And you know it when you're around somebody who's trying to approach source. You can feel that because it's actually tangible. Krishna himself can feel it. When Gajendra was praying to him through his elephant body in the 8th canto Bhagavatam, he remembered a prayer from his previous birth when he was a human, but he didn't know who he was praying to. But it's described the demigods were hearing it, and they were saying, this is not for us. This is for the Lord. And the Lord came because he's calling out to the Supreme, and that sincere desire for the Supreme is actually non-different from connecting to the Supreme. And all the specific knowledge we're given about Krishna in his form as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Vrindavan and all the different incarnations is all supportive of developing a relationship. But that sincere connection is actually can be found in any tradition. And even an insincere kind of like, but actually just want material thing, and so I'll go to a demigod, that's also facilitated by Krishna himself. So kind of can't get away from him.
I keep opening, every time I open this book, and I keep opening to this page, and it says Asintya Vahida.
Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Yeah, the simultaneous oneness and difference.
That's what I needed to say that. Thanks for being.
Yeah, Lord Chaitanya explains that that's the fabric upon which our whole philosophy is built, because we're simultaneously one with Krishna, and we're simultaneously different from him, and we're one with him enough that we can have a relationship with him, and we're different from him enough that we can have a relationship with him. So there is much you can say about how we're one with the Lord, and the relationship, and there's much you can say about the difference, and both things are true.
You said, was it chapter 9? Is it in chapter 9? I think your reflection, like if you can see your reflection, you can see Krishna. I think you gave that example.
Yeah, it might have been chapter 9, verse Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, verse 4 and 5, Krishna says that he says that the world is coming from him, but actually he's not connected. Although it's coming from him and it's eternally connected to him, he himself is not revealing himself in the world. Pashyame yoga maishvaram, see my supreme yogic power that I'm not personally present there. I may have used the example from Prahlad's prayers where there's a mirror analogy there. He says that when you decorate your own face, then your reflection in the mirror becomes decorated. So similarly, he says, it's just like when you serve Krishna, you yourself you blossom and grow because you're connected. Just like you and your own reflection are connected. If you go to the source and you serve the source, you will naturally benefit. You can't not be benefited because you're eternally connected to that source. Just like your own reflection. If you decorate your face, your reflection is also beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because we're connected. Jai. We have a few minutes, and only a few minutes, because I have to go downstairs and start making the offering of all the food. There's a local buffet of prasadam, and we'll have more kirtan while I'm down there. And you can also just continue. You can have kirtan of the holy name. You can also have continuing discussion amongst yourselves and with the online crew. That's really up to you. But we have maybe 5 more minutes.
Okay, my question is, and this is like an amazing infomercial or something. What class are you talking about that you've opened
We had a systematic study of the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
and you have to come here or what was
No,
that?
you don't have to come here.
I'm so sorry that you weren't aware of it.
I don't know, I just like, there's a lot of things in your messages.
There are.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You're not wrong.
What time?
You're not wrong.
So Tuesdays at 6:30 generally.
Looking for like 3 days.
Generally at 6:30. Today we're starting a little bit earlier because so that it doesn't go so late, so we can have time for prashad and other things. But
You're all just used to this.
Yeah.
yes, we just finished the Nectar of Devotion a couple of weeks ago. Before that, we did a systematic study of the Light of Bhagavat, Ishopanishad, Nectar of Instruction. Before that, Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to start the Krishna book next Tuesday, and it'll be available in person here and also online through Zoom. And then I also put all the classes on YouTube, and we have a WhatsApp group for all these things. So I send the YouTube link for the class, and we have discussion and conversation on WhatsApp, all just as ways to kind of keep the thing going throughout the week. And that's what this infomercial's for.
And then the other thing that you have here in Vermont is that nobody has any clue what a Hare Krishna is. Like, I just everywhere I go, I mean, they're getting lots of mercy because I'm distributing prasadam and they know my name, Radha's great name for.
Great name.
Yeah, great name.
Mhm.
I didn't make it up, but yeah. But then I'm just like so bewildered after being in Florida, you know, I mean, like after being anywhere else in the world, you know, like. I just said, Hare Krishna, and I'm like, huh, what's that? Have you heard of Hindu? Like.
Fresh territory. Yeah.
Fresh.
It's totally
Untainted.
fresh. It's really wild. He also-
It's great because you get
No
to
connotation.
There's no, in other words, there's no negative
Yeah,
connotation.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
with people who harass people in the airports or whatever, but you don't do
Yeah.
that here, so.
yeah
Not yet.
Yeah.
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 So we'd love to see more of you. Tune in person or online.
Tuesdays, but.
Well, they're all recorded, and you can just tune in later.
I just got put onto the Inclusion and Belonging Committee of Winooski.
Oh,
So I've done two. I just love the name of it. I don't even know what we're supposed to do, but it's so cool.
Cool.
So welcoming all these people from all over the world. I mean, the lady just doing my teeth today was from Morocco, and she said Radha. Oh, that's an Arabic name, right? I'm like, no, it's a Hindu name too, but she had never heard of Hare Krishna. So.
Yeah.
And then I live in a building of, you know, most of the people are walking with walkers. They're on their last leg, you know, and they have no clue what I do, but they just know that I'm nice. I mend their clothes, I feed them cookies, I engage them. They're also helping to make hats for homeless people now too, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Look forward to hear more about that.
Love it.
Do we have any more comments, questions, reflections on the Bhakti Shastra?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, thank you so much. Very grateful for going through all the teachings and texts. I didn't this was amazing. I don't even know like the words really to describe it, but it really helped bring light to a lot of things that, you know, just throughout the text, just highlighting. And then I really appreciated the order of the book too, how it was gradually bringing us, you know,
It's
to
deliberate.
the
Yeah, it's
nectar of
important to start with
devotion.
the
So, and the favorite was the light of the Bhagavat. That was such a good gem, taking nature and then all the lessons together. So
Yeah,
thank you.
that's a really good book for people who have no context to Bhakti at all, is Light of the Bhagavat, because it uses such easily approachable analogies and allegories of the natural world. And it's really pretty. It's a really pretty book.
Yeah, the art was oh, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Mm.
Lightning round. Quick reflections before Justin.
Shastra brings realization, and then Shastra validates realizations.
Yeah.
And it's the most in-depth, perfect offering mercy that we have. And I thank you, Prabhu, for everything.
It's my pleasure. I have more fun than anybody, I always say, on Tuesdays. I guess I'm
And
here
Friday
like-
mornings.
and Friday morning, Bobby's on class. Yeah, it's really nice to have, because we have our practice and we're developing realizations in real time. And then you go to Shastra and it's fleshed out and it's described and it's, systematized and with generations of devotees commenting on it and living it. And it's like, oh wow, okay, it is real, and this is how I can understand it in the greater context. And that's really it offers a lot of solace and comfort and guidance and practicality. And I can't imagine a practice of bhakti without it. Yeah.
How many of you, after like learning more about bhakti and bhakti philosophy and such, were like, wow, this is how I felt my whole life, or I felt,
Yeah.
but I never found the words to describe it. Exactly.
I was
It's
just
like
saying that shit as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shastra gives the words in which we can describe how we have felt and not knowing how to
Right.
share.
And Shastra is also, being grounded in Shastra is a fundamental qualification of any advanced devotee. So our gurus and the previous acharyas all took shelter of Shastra and all lived their lives in accordance to Shastra. So it's actually like there's a triangulation there. When you're hearing about the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur or you're learning from your living guru, it's like they're not taking anything outside of Shastra. They're not speculating on anything. They've all humbly studied Shastra, and all three aspects, guru, sadhu, and Shastra, are confirming each other, which helps you so much. The living teachers, the previous teachers, and the eternal spiritual texts. Yeah.
I think someone wrote something in the comments.
Oh yeah. Ditto Leanne, so grateful. I can't unmute because it's loud, but thank you humbly, Shami Parun Kishori. Happy 2025.
That's Samantha.
That's Samantha, yeah.
Yeah. I see your bowing.
Jai.
Right.
So I have to bow out for now and go downstairs and make.
We're all gonna go down.
We're all gonna go down. Okay, so maybe we could take the camera down for the kirtan so that they can.
Yeah, I'll bring the camera down. Mel, you wanna lead a kirtan downstairs?
I guess I can, I was not prepared for such things.
While Shami leads the offering,
Sure.
and the harmonium's out, there's a mridanga. If Srinivas wants to play the mridanga, maybe.
All right,
Okay,
Jai.
and we'll bring you downstairs for the kirtan too. Hari Bol, Hari
You want to just
Krishna.
use your?
I'll bring mine.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll tune out off for now and see you in the
And
kirtan.
to a great year and a half of Shastra, may it continue.
Yeah.
Keep the president of our
Bhakti Shastra ki jai.
Jai.
Next week, Krishna book, Sangha ki jai. Burn the Bhakti Sangha and beyond ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Glories to Sri Vyasadeva, Srila Prabhupada, all of our commenting acharyas, Rupa Goswami, etc. Haribol.
Want me to stop recording?
Yeah.